Welcome to Covenant of Justice. I'm attorney Isaiah Jerez, and every other week we sit down with remarkable individuals of Southern Nevada who make this such a wonderful place to live. Together, we explore a wide range of topics that matter to the people of Las Vegas and beyond, offering a glimpse behind the glamour of the Strip to showcase the real stories, experiences, and voices that shape our community. Here today with Dr. Donna Wilburn. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist that specializes in trauma resolution. Yeah, Dr. Donna, thanks for coming today. And, we're heading into a really special time in our nation, holidays where we spend a lot of focus on the family. And, a lot of people, when they deal with me, they're dealing with things that are tough. And entering into this time is tough as well, right? When they have someone missing at the dinner time or missing when, they're gathering around the Christmas tree. How do you help your patients prepare for that and then go through that?
Right. So this time of year, holidays, maybe other times of year like birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, things like that, really bring up the issue of loss, because this is when you really notice that you're missing somebody, right? So I tell people, prepare for a hurricane, not a sprinkle, okay? A lot of people sometimes think they can just make it through the holiday without even, no, I'll be fine. I'm good. And I'm like, you think you're going to be good, but you have a subconscious mind that also is operating, and this is a memorial time. Like, this is when you remember that person. And so you can't pretend like it's not going to affect you. So I say, prepare for a hurricane, not a sprinkle, because you're going to be emotional. And so you have to prepare to be emotional. You have to give yourself some grace. You have to put aside some time so you can remember that person. I say, put that right up front, like tell stories about them, bring the kids into it. Like, don't pretend that nothing happened. Don't pretend or think that you can get by without even discussing the subject. This is trauma affects you physically as well as mentally and emotionally, and a lot of people don't give themselves the understanding that you are physically affected by grief and loss. Like, it affects your actual brain is affected by grief and loss as a trauma. It is considered a trauma. And so it affects your physical brain, like someone hit your brain with a baseball bat. You can't just grief and loss, just cry a little bit and be done. It takes months, years to recover from a trauma like that.
Yeah, could you tell me a little bit more about this, right? So you're saying heading into this season, right, that address the trauma. Don't try to stuff it away and put it away. What happens physically within the brain if someone does that, right? If they acknowledge someone's missing, if they bring that up and they talk about that, remember the good times with them, or maybe even the bad times or the fun times. Right. What happens biologically within the brain?
So there's two things. You have a path, right? You can suppress your feelings and try to stuff them and pretend like nothing happened, or you can process your feelings, express them, and get them out of your body. So what happens in your body when you suppress is it creates a stress response in your body, and so your cortisol goes up, your adrenaline goes up, there's like an inflammation process that happens, so your brain actually can get inflamed, which makes it like you can't concentrate well, you can't focus well, you're more emotional about things, you're less patient. So if you're going to try to suppress or think you can suppress, you're going to cause your whole body to go into a strong stress response, okay? If you're going to process the feeling, yeah, you will have some times where you're emotional, but you'll make it through that. It takes maybe 20, 30 minutes to process an emotional state, and then you can stay in your healthy place and enjoy your holidays. Okay. Do you want to be in a high stress state during the holiday season? Do you want to like not be present, be disconnected, and miss out on the connections that you can make with your family? Because that's what happens if you're going to suppress that. But if you allow yourself to express it, and I say 20 minutes a day, go into your room, allow yourself to have those feelings, cry, express it, be upset if you have to, share with somebody, have somebody next to you, and let yourself be emotional 20, 30 minutes. and you can be fine for the rest of the day.
And like you said, it's a hurricane, it's not a sprinkle, so it's
Yeah.
not something that's going to be resolved just in one day. It's something that's going to have to be continually addressed.
Yeah, there's no end to your experience with grief and loss. It's not like you'll be done grieving. There's no done. There's no, and I will never have to feel sad again. That will not happen. Okay. What happens is there are longer times between the difficult times. When trauma and grief and loss initially happen, you're feeling it all day, every day, right? And so as time goes on, if you allow yourself to feel it, remember, don't suppress, express. Okay. If you allow yourself to feel it, that there'll be spaces between the grieving times. Like maybe you have a rough day, and then you'll have a day where you aren't as intensely upset. And as time goes on, those spaces between become longer. Okay. And then it could be 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, and you'll hear a song or there'll be a holiday, and that memory will come up and you'll have to feel the sad feeling again. And that's okay. You have to expect it and be prepared for it and allow it and express it and release it, and then you can move on. But there's no end. The brain does not forget. The brain doesn't have this thing where it's like, oh, I forgot they ever existed. The brain doesn't do that. It always remembers that you had a connection with somebody. It always remembers the emotions and the feelings that you had when you were with that person. And so things that remind you of that later on, whether you haven't seen them in however long, your brain remembers the emotions that you had with that person, and you will miss them again. I call them missing them moments. And it'll come up, and it'll come up randomly because you don't know what data will trigger the memory of that person. It could be a color, it could be a sound, it, like I said, a song or a smell, or you walk into a room and it just kind of reminds you of them, and up come those feelings, and it's okay. You can handle them.
And what about those, missing them moments and handling it in their bedroom alone versus addressing it with people that are there with them, right? Is there a different biological or even just an emotional reaction when someone is dealing with it or addressing those on their own versus sharing that with others that they love?
So there's some new research out there that was really interesting that show that when you are sharing with someone who is a good listener, it's different than sharing with someone who's not.
Oh.
Okay. When you're sharing
Yeah.
with someone who's a good listener and you're receiving that support, this you get a boost of oxytocin, which is a brain chemical that makes you feel loved and connected. And that loved and connected feeling that you're getting when you're sharing with a good listener is healing. It's healing your body, your mind, and your body. So there are physical things that are happening when you are sharing with someone who's listening and caring. And then you get that boost of oxytocin, you feel loved, your healing is just facilitated a little bit by that. So it is always better to share with someone who's a good listener, and that's what us therapists are for, because sometimes people don't have that in their family or friends. They don't have somebody who can listen without judgment or criticism or turn making it about them or whatever that is. So sometimes we don't have that. So that's what therapists are for. Also, sometimes I'll see somebody and they're doing good and they won't see me for months on end. And then here comes a holiday and they're like, I need to come in and talk. And it's because they need to share and process, and they don't really have somebody to do that. And a holiday is coming. So we need to come in. And so for therapists, the clientele, like the need goes up, I would say, after Thanksgiving and right before Christmas. There's a need, and people will start coming in, and our caseload gets really busy, and then Christmas comes and everybody disappears till New Year's. And I think they're just in a different state, right? They're just in a holiday state, and there are a lot of festivities going on from Christmas to New Year's. It's a week of like quietness in the therapy land. Not a lot of stuff is happening. So it's kind of interesting. And as you talk about the biological effect of sharing with someone who's a good listener, they see there is a biological effect to that.
I wonder if that also includes not only sharing, verbally, but also sharing in activities that you would do with that person, right?
Right.
Whether or not it's through cooking, right? A lot of people express their love through cooking and being
Right.
able to cook with other people that you love, whether or not you can see that same type of oxytocin
Right.
involvement.
Right, because there's different ways that people have of connecting, and sometimes they need a activity in order to kind of let their guard down and be able to share more. So let's say you have teenagers. Okay, teenagers don't want to sit here and you're talking to them and you're like, okay, share. They're like, but if you're driving and you're focused on the road and they're looking and you're talking, or if you're walking, or if you're, I don't know, cooking or doing whatever, for some reason they just start to be chatty, 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 chatty. So there are a lot of people who will share better if they're doing something together. And maybe that's where making those little gingerbread houses, like how everybody wants to make the gingerbread houses and have cookie exchanges, and we're all together doing something positive, and so much talking is happening during that time. So yeah, absolutely. And it's actually more with males need to actually have a physical activity that they're doing in order to share. Women are actually pretty good at just sitting there talking at each other for like hours on end. But yeah, some people do need a physical activity.
Yeah, I like the physical activity because it's easy, right? I can bring it out real quickly and then change the focus, right? And then do something else,
I'll
right?
do this over here.
Yeah.
But you do tend to verbalize more if you're distracted by what you're doing. Like I work with children a lot. I have Legos in the office and of course a lot of other things, but I have to tell you, like playing with Legos, they're just playing, but oh boy, are they talking about stuff while they're playing, not even realizing how much that they're sharing. And so super handy. Super handy.
And just that sharing, just opening up and being able to share with somebody else something that's deep and not being necessarily judged or just by the way that their emotions are being expressed.
I think that judgment, I find that people have a hard time sharing, and if you want to be a good listener, they say problem solving and criticism are gonna sabotage the connection. So if someone is sharing with you, if you want to fix their problem and you're like, well, here's what you should do about, that's going to sabotage the connection. And if there's any criticism, like, well, maybe you shouldn't have done this, and that's going to sabotage the connection. So if someone is sharing with you and you want to be a good listener, or if let's say your kids are sharing, or you really want to allow that, you have to let go of the problem solving and the criticism and just let what they share be okay.
And that's a good reminder heading into the holidays, right? As our loved ones are dealing with trauma, to be able to just realize we're not there to fix their solutions necessarily.
Right. And it doesn't help them to process. They just need to get stuff out. They just need to put it out there and get it out of their body. So if you problem solve or criticize what they're sharing, that's going to halt the process, and it's not going to facilitate what they needed to do.
So what are some tricks to help us bite our tongue, right? So we're not just quick to interject and interrupt and, provide our opinion or our supposed direction that we think is best.
Right. And it's, even recognizing that if you have an urge to solve problems or to fix things, to own it. And you're like, okay, this is going to be hard for me if I hear somebody upset about something. And I'm not supposed to offer them solutions or how to fix the problem. Owning that, being aware of that as a challenge for you is huge, right? So you can accept your limitation. It's hard for me. Like it's hard for me to hear people's stuff and not go, well, this is what you should do to fix it. So just owning it, that it's a challenge, will help you resist the urge, right? And I would say, if you're listening to somebody and you want to really help them by facilitating their processing, a few deep breaths to calm your own nervous system, to like find the love in your heart, because when you're feeling love, you are they feel that from you. there's a thing called co-regulation that your nervous system, their brain will pay attention to your nervous system. And if you're getting upset or frustrated or whatever, their nervous system is going to mirror that. So keeping yourself in the calmest place while they're talking, taking really deep breaths, slowing your heart rate, calming your body, relaxing your muscles while they're talking to you will help facilitate that. That's a little turbo thing that you can do to really make this a good experience for them.
Yeah, because we want that, right? A good experience for them, a good experience for those loved ones that are around as well, and for ourselves as well, right? Because in the end, it doesn't do anything to interject when someone's not looking for direction, right?
No. And you don't want to sabotage their processing. Like, they need to process this stuff. But it's so hard. It's a loved one that's so upset. And it's so hard to just be okay with that while they're upset. You're gonna want to fix it. And so you have to remember, this is not my role. My role is just to listen and love them while they're sharing. They actually call it holding space. You're just holding this space like this. I'm just right here, holding your space, holding you while you're being emotional. You're not doing anything else but holding. So that sometimes helps you handle their emotions.
And what about people that say, oh, people grieve in different ways, right? And so someone's still grieving, somebody's still suffering from the loss and has to bring it up continually, whereas someone else in the family might just be like, I'm done with it. We need to move on. And then you get that argument of, hey, like, we all grieve differently, but do we? Do we all grieve differently?
And because we are different, we're all unique creatures. So how we grieve is very dependent on where we're at. Like, if I'm comfortable being emotional, then I will be able to grieve more outwardly or around people. But if I'm not comfortable being emotional as a person, I'm going to kind of suppress that. Or I've like worked with so many different ways of grieving where you have the loss happen, and then there'll be a period of time where they're disconnected and dissociated because of this trauma, that it looks like they're not grieving at all. It looks like, does this even affect them? But what happened is it was so traumatizing that they disconnected from themselves. And so they're not even like really feeling, it's like a shock, like a psychological shock. And so I had one, it took like a year for that person to get past that so that they could even start feeling. It's hard for people to feel strong feelings. And so it really depends like where they're at with that. So I was recently in Italy, and I noticed with Italian people, they are totally fine feeling their feelings. Okay, you see them all over the place. Feelings are happening all over the place.
Is that why their food is so good?
Maybe they love it so much. Yeah. So here they are feeling their feelings all over. They're yelling, or they're happy, or they're grumpy, and you see, I'm a therapist. I'm like, oh my gosh, these people have like feelings everywhere. Then in that culture, grieving is going to be out there. Like, everybody's okay with you having your feelings. You're going to process your grieving, and they're okay with it, right? But then you go to another culture and they're not really okay with all that feeling stuff happening. You're not going to feel comfortable just expressing your feelings to people who are like, I don't know what to do with this, right? So there's cultural differences, there's social differences, there's your own personal trauma. If you grew up in a household where feelings were, you heard, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, you're going to grow up and think you shouldn't cry in front of people. So it's so many factors determine how someone grieves. Then I was thinking about this today. I'm like, there's no here's how to grieve instruction book. There's no way how to do that. All I can say is try to allow yourself to feel, even if it's 20 minutes, even if it's like with nobody, just try to allow yourself to feel. And if you don't have somebody in your life who you feel comfortable doing that around, That's what therapists are for. We're totally good with feelings. Feel free. I hear so many people that are like, sorry, I'm crying. I'm like, this is not the space to be sorry that you're crying. It is totally healthy here to be crying.
And you
So,
hear stories about that, people going to therapists and they don't say a word for the first
yeah,
few visits because they just cry, right?
you
just
gotta
come in
let it
because,
out.
yeah.
Or people who say, oh my gosh, I don't ever cry. I can't believe I'm crying right now. And I say your mind was just waiting for the right environment to allow you to get that out. Crying is healthy. It's a release of our body. There's a saying, and it's kind of vulgar, but it's called emotionally constipated. Okay. If you suppress, it's like eating, but not allowing yourself to go to the bathroom. Like that's going to be toxic to your body. Same with feelings. Things are happening. You have to allow yourself to feel them. And if you don't allow yourself, there is a negative reaction in your physical body, a cortisol stress reaction that leads to toxicity later. What do they say? The autoimmune disorders are extremely related to emotional suppression. Cancer is related to emotional suppression.
What about traumatic brain injury clients, right? Who had in a crash or in some type of incident, a fall where they've had damage to their brain where they can't feel, where they can't express those emotions.
I have not seen that type of injury where they can't feel. If anything, traumatic brain injury creates difficulty in managing their feelings, like they feel too much, or their feelings get too intense, right? And so they might stub their toe and like throw a giant fit and get super angry at it. So there's an area of the brain that regulates emotions that keeps us, I call it, in the zone, where we don't get too upset or too low. We just kind of stay in the zone. And there's an area of the brain that regulates that. And if that area of the brain gets injured, that person is either going to get too intense or have not enough feelings or numbness. That can happen. I haven't seen it be like all the time consistently, but if you have traumatic brain injury that results in difficulty regulating your emotions, like that's hard to handle, and especially for the people around that person, because there's going to be some intense emotional reactions that could be scary. And so treatment is all I can say. Things that help your brain heal. Our brain can heal from a lot.
Yeah, and a lot of times, at least I see it with my clients, is they don't recognize that they're having those issues, and it's their loved ones. So the loved ones that coming and saying, "Hey, like this is happening," right? But they don't want to recognize it. They want to recognize that they're having these difficulties in their life.
And to them, it's normal. It's all they know. That's their life since day one. That's how they've been. And so I feel like sometimes I'm telling people who, they're like, the sky is red. I'm like, no, that's blue. And they're like, what? Like I'm telling people something, their whole reality has been, this is what it is. And I come in and tell them, no, that's trauma. That's a trauma response. And they're like, what? So you have someone who's been living this way their whole life, and you come in and tell them, FYI, that is not how we're supposed to handle things. Like, you don't need to be like that. And they're like, what? This is what I hear. This is just me. This is how I am. I'm like, that's all you know. And you've been in trauma mode maybe your whole life. Doesn't mean that's the only way. And sometimes they don't know there's different until they're feeling different. And they're like, oh, yeah, that way that was intense. But yeah, a lot of times they don't realize it.
Realize that it's just them. That's the way they are. That's who they've come accustomed to. That's who they're
they don't realize there's another option.
And that other option, kind of like what you're talking about. Let's process this, right? Let's find a way to.
It's like breathe. Yeah. That's what I said. Take a breath. This intensity does not need to be happening right now. You can handle it. Take a breath and calm your body down. And there's, as a therapist, like, you have high hopes. I have high hopes for humanity. And as we're becoming more emotionally aware, therapy's becoming more acceptable, we're starting to teach our children emotional regulation earlier. But prior to these past maybe 10 years, we weren't teaching kids how to regulate emotions. Like, it's okay to have a feeling, take a deep breath. It's all right. How do you calm yourself down? That's okay. We were saying either, I don't want to see it, or what's wrong with this kid that's having big feelings. We weren't talking about it and teaching them. And now we are. Now there's a movement, we see more of a willingness to do that.
Yeah, it's just not shut up, get out of here.
Right.
It's okay, like, what are you saying?
Right.
Regardless of how old
What
the
are
child
these
is.
feelings?
Yeah.
Where are they coming from? What are you thinking? Like, now we're talking about it. Whereas, like, in generations ago when you were raised and I was raised, there's no talking about your feelings, processing happening for kids. No.
Yeah, maybe I was on the lucky side because my parents lost a child very early on, and so my mom was involved a lot in therapy to kind of help process that, and so that could have been a little bit different.
And maybe she was like bringing home some of that information and helping the kids and sharing with you guys what she's learning. Maybe that would have been nice. I had one client who he lost a sister when he was very young, and his parents did not handle it, and they just suppressed everything and didn't allow him to talk about his feelings. And he was maybe 50 something and had been depressed his whole life and didn't realize it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, until you start talking about opening up and trying to find out, like, why am I dealing with this, or what is,
what's happening?
Yeah, and I think about joy, right? I mean, a lot of people want to be happy, but in reality, we're not. We can't be happy all the time, right? We've got certain things that we got to do.
That would probably be a really cool kind of brain injury.
Yeah,
like, I'm happy all the time.
Yeah. But being depressed and being joyful, it's almost like they just kind of butt up against each other, right? Because to me, it's like you can be like joyful is in part of recognizing things are tough. We have to deal with certain things, right? It's not a matter of we've got to be happy all the time. It's no, there's a lot to life that we've got to be able to address. But it seems to me like joy and depression also are so close to each other, like they butt up against each other.
So I don't know, when it comes to depression, with the way the brain works with depression, it's really challenging to actually feel joy. True depression is the brain is shut down and is unable to feel joy at all. But you can have rough moments and times where you're really sad and, having difficulty is not depression. That's human, right?
Right.
And then you can have times where you're feeling joy about something, and that's normal human. You have times where you're feeling joy, and you have times where you're feeling extremely sad and having difficulty. That's human. That's the human experience. Okay. Depression as a disorder diagnosis, there's no joy ever. No matter what. You'd be like, oh, it's your grandbabies and they love you so much. And they're like, yeah, that's nice. But they're not really feeling the joy of it. And so sometimes people call, like, oh, I'm sad about this, or I'm having a really rough day, as depressed. And we have to be careful. Like, that's normal human. Depression is a whole different story.
Debilitating.
Totally. I think of it as brain failure, organ failure. Your brain is unable to create the serotonin and the positive experiences and the positive thoughts. And so it's shut down. It's not able to do that. And that's a serious thing. Like, if you had heart failure or liver failure, you'd be like, oh my gosh, get some help. My organ has failed. But there are people with depression for years that are not getting help. I'm like, your brain has failed. It is not working. And they're like, well, this is just how I am. I'm like, oh my gosh, no.
Yeah. And that's tough for people, right? To recognize, okay, I'm going to change, right? Regardless of what stage you are in life, come back to look in the mirror and say, okay, is it time to change? Is it time to be someone different?
Yeah, that's, I'd say, one of the hardest things for people is to look in the mirror and acknowledge they say it's shadow work. Like you have to look at your dark areas. Like, what do I need to work on? What do I need to attend to? And that's not common. I would say 80% of people don't do that.
One of the books that, when I first heard the title, it's like, seems so, it just doesn't have a good title. It's a good book by Carnegie, How to Make Friends and Influence People, right? And it's like, okay, this is just so, but the title sounds very manipulating.
It does.
But when I went through that book, it talks about that. You've got to look at yourself, right? You've got to look at yourself in the mirror and realize that this book isn't about trying to get ahead. It's about trying to help people out. And the best way for us to help people out is to look in the mirror, right? To look at how we treated each other.
Maybe the book is like a teaser for people. Like the title is like, they won't know that this is really about self-awareness. They'll think this is about manipulation, and then it tricks them into reading the book and like, yes, you got them to really look at something.
Yeah, and one of the examples that they use in there is of a man that every Saturday night he would look at his calendar and say, what could I have done better? How could I have handled the situation differently, right? To look introspectively. And so, how do we be part of that 20%, right? The 20% that are willing to look at ourselves, even in times of the seasons, right? Heading into the seasons. We don't need to be happy all the time. It's about being joyful, right? And to recognize that the people around us, they need help as well.
Right. How to allow yourself to be the human being that you are, and give yourself grace to process difficult things, as well as to allow yourself to stay connected, to enjoy the positive experiences. That's, we're a work in progress, right? And I tell people there's no done. I'm done now. I worked on myself. Everything's over. Nope. And I'm 60 now and a therapist, you'd think I worked on all my stuff. And then something comes up and it's like, oh, I guess another thing I get to work on. Lucky me, it's not over ever.
Yeah, we're always learning, right?
Always. Learning and growing. Learning and growing.
Thank you so much for coming on today.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.